Well, no. One of the other things that I think is interesting is that you have a lot of very well-rounded portrayals, and for many years, what you didn't see in terms of portrayals of Native people, or even films that made it perhaps too stereotypical, or try to generate an idea of what a Native person was on film, and it seemed like there was almost no humor or almost no sexuality in terms of what people were allowed to play, and that's certainly not been the case for your career. And I think in many ways you're
No,
helping
not at all.
to break the mold in that way. I mean, as an actress, I mean, do you think that's something that you could have done a generation ago, or what, or do you feel that it's something that the roles are now really going to open up, or?
I'm hoping so. I mean, that's kind of what Blackstone is a very groundbreaking sort of show. So I'm hoping that a lot of opportunities open up for First Nations actors in Canada and the United States. I don't know though. I mean, like you said, a generation ago, what was I doing? I was running around in buckskin dresses, right? And I did that because I needed to pay the bills. I needed to build up my resume. But you know what? It's funny is that at 27, I thought I don't want to just be the girl in the buckskin dress, so I chopped off all my hair, and I had this cute little bob, and all of a sudden I was auditioning for cops and lawyers and all sorts of really fun little roles, and I think that's where it actually started. That I was given more opportunities as soon as I chopped off, the flowing Pocahontas locks. Good move on my part, I think.
Well, no, it is it's to our benefit that we got a chance to get to see some very interesting roles, and I'm kind of curious. That's not a bad tip, I guess. We can say that as one of the things. Like, what would you suggest to growing up actress? Get rid of the Pocahontas.
Talk about your hair. It'll do wonders for your career.
Do you have any more projects that you're working on that you'd like to share? Because we'd already brought up Blackstone, of course, and Blood and Chrome. Do you have anything else that's upcoming?
Well, I've sort of dabbled in producing in the last couple of years a little bit. So I'm sort of working with one of my favorite writers, Andrew Janelle, right now on a couple of scripts that he's had hiding away, and we're kind of in development and talking to Telefilm and seeing where we can get some funding and all that. So I'm doing a little bit of that. I'm still auditioning and waiting to get work on Blood and Chrome and Blackstone and see when we go to camera again.
But the other thing that you did, I'm glad that you brought up the producing or directing. Was a film I haven't actually got a chance to see it yet, but everyone is giving really rave reviews, and it actually just had won an award. I think it was at the Aboriginal People's Film Festival. Was that it, or the Red Nation Film Festival? The Two Indians Talking. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your involvement was with the film?
Two Indians Talking. It was my first time as an associate producer. So hard. Producing is so difficult. I had no idea. But it's about two cousins who are preparing for a roadblock, and the night before the day that they might very well die, and all the things that come up in conversation through that night, where they're going into this thing that they really fully believe in. And it was a script that I fell in love with years ago from Andrew, and I really wanted to see it go. So when I got a call from the director, Sarah McIntyre, she said that she wanted to do this as a first-time director, and I asked her if I could come on board to learn how to produce, because I had no idea what it was all about. Most difficult thing ever to do, producing, but it's something that I'm keen on learning more about. And Andrew, like I said, Andrew Janelle is one of my favorite writers. He's done Johnny Too Tall. He did, now I can't even remember. Well, obviously he did Two Indians Talking. Mm-hmm. And we've got a couple more of his projects that we're taking a look at. See if we can get them up and running. And of course, I'll be in them.
That's great. I mean, are you talking about generating your own film production company, or how are you going about?
No, not really a film production company. I mean, my name will be attached to it as a producer, but I think it'll all go under Andrew's production company. He wants to direct them as well.
Sounds like it's a lot of interesting projects, and as you say, you've already got two that you're just waiting to get back to the camera for. And
Yeah.
No, one of the other ones that I wanted to talk to you about, because it's again very different than I think a lot of people if they have any stereotypical images of Native actors or actresses, they probably would not have imagined Tales of an Urban Indian. And I think that was a very... And you mentioned Tattoo earlier, and I gotta say, it was a pleasure getting a chance to talk to her. She actually helped us to start this series of interviews, and I gotta say, that might as well have been... that is Sex in the City with Indians. That is very different than... So what, I mean,
that was a lot of fun. I really liked Tales of an Urban Indian, and I was really kind of disappointed that it didn't get the go-ahead. So we just shot the pilot, and then it kind of ended there. I haven't really heard anything more about it, but it was a lot of fun. Really had a good time with that one.
It looked like a fun script. I mean, it looked like everybody was having a good time. I don't know, maybe it's...
We had a blast.
There were still half-naked Indian people, but it was a very, very different context. No. Well,
yeah,
no.
it was fun.
Well, no, I just brought that one up because, again, it was a very different portrayal, and it's just kind of exemplary of the wide array of roles that you've had here. And kind of hate to make you play this game, but do you have a favorite out of all the people that you portrayed?
Oh my goodness, do I have a favorite? That's a hard one. I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years, so I've been a lot of different people. Well, I think Fidelia was probably, Fidelia was pretty great. And Simone from Godivas, I don't know if you've ever heard of Godivas. It was a show that was on about 5 or 6 years ago in Vancouver. We went for 2 seasons of that. She was nasty. She was an icy, man-eating bartender, and she was great. I really liked playing Simone.
Well, definitely, that was another one I think, unfortunately, we didn't really get here in the States. We have to do better about getting you back here to the States. I'm hoping this interview and things like that will help.
Well, I'm hoping so, too. Where in the States?
Well, have you had any experience in terms of working in the States as opposed to working in Canada? I mean, have you had any changes, or was one more difficult than the other, or have you had a chance to have that experience?
No, I've worked on a lot of American productions that have shot here, but no, I haven't had the opportunity to audition or work in the States yet. I think I gotta go and get my paperwork done before that happens. I've considered coming to LA a few times, here and there, but I always, I get every time I plan to go to LA, something happens to keep me here, and the last time it was Caprica. So, one of these days, I will get to LA.
And one of the questions that I've asked everybody in the series of interviews so far is relating to the importance of media representation, and one of the real purposes behind doing these talks, and just getting generally people's experiences in the industry. And that's again talking about, and I know we mentioned your co-star Eric Schweig earlier, and some of his experiences being what they are. Is the topic of the Native American boarding schools, because that's something that has had a real effect on reserve life, and I think is the type of thing that may even come up in Blackstone. And I was just going to see, I mean, did you have any comment about that? Because one of the fears is that because there were a lot of negative portrayals of Native people going on in that practice, it was kind of allowed to continue after a lot of other really openly racist practices like segregation were ended, and just kind of see if you had any comment, if you had any feeling about that.
I think that the effects of resident school are, I'm searching for the word here.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I know.
Responsible. I think the residential schools are responsible for most of the dysfunction that is still existent on reserves today. And I certainly know people who are, survivors of residential school, or their children are suffering the effects of having parents that are survivors of residential school. And I think it's something that a lot of people in Canada and the United States still don't really understand, because it's not really talked about. I'm surprised when I talk to people who have grown up here and they still have no idea that part of Canada's history. It's just not, it's not taught here. I mean, it's sort of Canada's dirty little secret. And I'm hoping physically, emotionally, mentally abused for their entire youth, and then sent back to their reserves and sort of just dumped there without any tools to survive. So, I mean, that's going to have an effect on any community. The communities were left without children. The children were left without parents. So how are these children going to grow up and be good parents themselves when they didn't have parents to learn from? And we're still, we need to address this. We need to talk about it. We need to take a look at it, and we need to understand it in order for it to change. And Blackstone is certainly opening those doors.
Thank you for that. It's a hard thing to ask about because there's still a lot of sensitivities there, but at the same time, because it isn't as talked about so much, it really is something that I've wanted to get a chance to focus on. And I felt like media representation played a part, because when you see all these negative portrayals, you kind of get the idea. You have the stereotype of the dead native or the Stoic native. That Native history ends at 1900, and these abuses were there until the 1970s. And in America, I think the last person to graduate from one of those schools was like 1986 or 1996. So that's a long period of time. that's a lot of history there. I mean, and kind of also because Blackstone got some criticism for saying, oh, well, you're doing too much. You're talking too much about the dysfunction here, and it's just like, well, it exists. It's
it exists. It really does. It exists. But I mean, if that's what people are focusing on, I think they're missing the fact that there are just as many really good, healthy people in Blackstone that are fighting
exactly.
Right? There's a really good balance on this show. And I hope that people can get past the fear of seeing this stuff talked about in order to see that, right? Because as soon as you start talking about it, the fear goes away, and we can do something about it. If we live in fear, nothing changes.
Do you think it could have been done by anybody other than what it was? Because it's very much stories told with a native perspective, because with Cardinal being very important in terms of making sure that he had an accurate portrayal, or a lot of these people are sharing their lives experience. I mean, how important? I mean, do you think this could have been done in any other setting?
I don't believe so. I think that these First Nations stories being told by First Nations people was very, very important. I think that if anybody else had tried to do it, there would be a lot bigger backlash.
Yeah.
From the First Nations community, absolutely.
Well,
I think they're doing a good job.
I would agree, and I got to say it was a pleasure even just to get to see the pilot and all the good work that you guys are doing. And I just thank you so much for your time today and for sharing.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.